I'm Runga here. I'm with my good buddies, Sean, also known as Mask on all forms of social media, and Grim DE Gaming. We are here to talk about TTRPGs, and we're specifically here to talk about TTRPGs because Sean, aka Mask, is a professional game master. He does it for a living. He hosts a bunch of different styles of games, and he gets paid for it. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about that. But first, we're going to talk to him about the fact that he just made his own TTARPG rule system and he's been talking about it for a while. He's very excited about it. I'm very excited about it because he's been telling me about it for a little while, and he just released it. How many days ago, Mask?
Oh, what was it like last week? I feel like
Yes,
it's been just a week now. It's
yeah,
like a newborn. It's barely know how to crawl.
yeah. It's fresh off the ground. It's publicly available. We'll pop up the website in the description and on screen right here if you want to check it out. You're still working on the monster manual, right?
That is correct. Still working on the monster manual. I'm going through literally the ecology of different biomes and also like incorporating different ones because fantasy isn't just what we have in real life. So there'll be
Yeah,
a lot of different biomes that you don't normally see, like yeah, like the Avatar floating islands,
yeah.
and all that crazy shit.
And honestly, that's something I really appreciate because I told you before about like some of my world building projects of like how I get really in depth with the the world part of it, the like how does this work, the science.
Right?
But that's awesome. So the way we're going to try to structure this for everyone that's watching, it's going to be I am a novice with D&D. I play D&D. I've DM'd a few sessions, but I generally have to look at the rule book for every single thing I'm doing. Sorry about that. For every single freaking thing I'm doing. Mammoth,
I slipped up
bleep that.
already too.
Yep. Uh, Grim is a much more prolific DM than I am, and a much more prolific player than I am. So he's kind of an expert. And Mask is obviously the one that has created his own TTRPG and actually gets paid to do the job. So we're coming at this from the perspective of a novice, an expert asking a professional question. So, Mask, why don't you tell us about the TTRPG and the basis of it?
All right. The name of the game is Runecraft. You can find us on dragons-roar.com. Um, and so but the whole basic of it is it's a TTA RPG. So similar to what you're seeing behind us, like Diablo, you generate energy as a resource and you use that to perform additional actions during your turn. So it makes combat very thematic because even if you miss your original hit, you still can like have an energy ability to pull out pocket sand or do an additional thing to buff your friends or to change the way combat moves around and is more or less functions. So it's a lot more fun. Um, Now the main thing, the name of the game is Runecraft. So the idea is that you're going to be going around. Runes are actually currencies and they're physical manifestations of magic in the world, and so they are causing pretty much like disruptions within monster communities or ecology systems or just environment. And you're try to get
Greetings.
these runes, and then you could use them. You can enhance your armor. You can enhance your weapons. You can use it to trade and sell, maybe barter. And the cool part with Runecraft too is just like kind of in real life, I've incorporated a mentor system. So that's how you gain and learn and enhance your abilities and gain your levels. Is you go and pay a teacher or someone you meet
Yes?
to teach you these things, and it could be like a shady assassin in the back of an alley, or it could be a mage that's renowned and known through the guilds. So you registered and like, oh, I want to learn from this mage, and so it kind of helps teach life lessons because it is also a way to learn how to socialize and to find resources that work for you.
Okay.
So there's so much more to it, but that is the general synopsis. Of course, the last little tidbit about it is that um, every character is a descendant of a dragon. We have like 16 different dragons at the moment, I think. 13 or 16. I might be mixed up with the amount of runes. But yeah, there's quite a lot, and there's quite a few, and each one has their own kind of like niche, and that kind of helps get your starting stats and starting abilities going. So you kind of have like a path you kind of can go. So there's not per se like set specific class, but you can definitely build, and we encourage by incentivizing players by it costing less runes or less, cost to learn certain skills if they're going down a certain path. So like if you want to be a tank, being stealthy isn't going to be your main thing. So it might cost you more than if someone who's a rogue or a thief trying to learn to be stealthy. And so we encourage you by positive reinforcement of going after those things that you set out to do as your path of learning, more or less.
Okay, well that to me that brings up the interesting question of what's the leveling system like then? If the way you gain new abilities is through taking on a mentorship, how's XP work? How's leveling work? How does any of that work to increase your abilities?
Well, as you go into dungeons or take on adventures, the main point is to acquire runes as like a part of the treasure. And so as you acquire it, you will be able to then afford to upgrade more abilities, gain more levels, and gain more, to upgrade whatever you got going on. So that's the way that leveling system kind of scales itself.
So it's not
So,
XP; it's item based. It's almost kind of
yeah,
similar to let's say like Destiny, where your level past I think 20. I think you level up with experience to 20, but then past 20, your level is entirely based on your item level, almost.
yeah, exactly. But I will say this: there are different rarities among the runes,
Okay.
100%. So like, a basic rune would be like a ground rune, something you would literally find like, not at your feet, but like elements
Mhm.
you would find more common. And then eventually it goes all the way up. I think the highest one we have right now is diamond. Supposedly there's a void rune, but no one's ever found it.
You made this
I mean,
game.
yeah, that still doesn't mean I know everything about it. That's the lore.
You know what? I love that because J.R.R. Tolkien wrote a lot of his stuff based off of that. So when he was asked questions, that was something that either he didn't want to tell people because Lord of the Rings is written from the perspective of a historian. It's written kind of
Yeah.
from the perspective of a historian who's recounting the War of the One Ring. And when he either didn't have an answer to a question or he didn't want to answer a question, he's like, "Well, that's not really known. We don't really know what happened there." And it's like this, it's this giant come on, man, come on.
Yeah.
But also, I like the way that it's kind of doing that, and I like the genuineness of that because it's very much a story should progress as you're writing it. If you have a hard line of how you want everything to move exactly the way it's going to move from the start, then it's not going to be organic. It's not going to feel real because you're not evolving with the characters as you write them. So I like that. Actually, I really like that. Okay, so Grim, let's
Yep.
what do you think? You from a perspective. Let's start with you. Let's start with you asking questions.
No, I mean, from what I'm listening, it sounds like, at least the mechanic wise, he's taken time to really flesh it out. There doesn't seem to be any major loopholes immediately that I can nitpick out. But to stay true to the tabletop type genre is player availability, the players being able to choose what they want their characters to be and then how to progress them. One of the hardest things when it comes to designing a tabletop game is deciding how do you wish to proceed for that game to act and react with the players. Is this going to be an exploration type game, or is this going to be a role-playing type game? Do I want my players to really nitty-gritty down meta play the game mechanics, the combat, or is this to design a compelling story? And there's been a lot of tabletop games out there that have tried to do what D&D has done, and many have, I would arguably say, have done pretty well for themselves. But I would love to get my hand on a copy of this as well, because I would also love to look at more of the intricacies of what you have for the game, because it sounds cool. It sounds like something I would want to DM.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things you kind of tuned in on it there too, because one of my immediate thoughts with it, and to that point, Grim, actually, if Mask is still cool with it, I know we discussed actually getting together and him hosting a one shot of it that we can do on stream or something like that to show how it plays.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely,
I'd be down.
I would personally love for you to be a part of that as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things I kind of like, and you kind of tuned in on it there, is it does seem very much like this is a way this provides utility for the DM to really kind of control player progression, but also allow for a lot of RP. Because you said there's a mentoring system there. So now the
Yes.
DM, like you maybe your quest, maybe how you get started is you really want to be this or that, so you get started by your primary individual quest for your character is to find a mentor,
Yes.
is to find
I've
someone to
had
help you. So you're limited with your progression until you can do that, but it allows a lot of room for individual
roleplay.
storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had many players have that type of like background, being like, oh yeah, I'm like a student of this teacher, and then I'm like, okay, I'll work that name, that
Mhm.
teacher, and your backstory into my world's universe.
Yeah.
So they feel like they're a part of it, and because that's the point. Like their players are a part of it. Like when players make a character, they're not isekai'd into the world. Like they're born there, so
Yeah.
they have some understanding of what's happening around them.
I mean,
So
I have
having-
had players that have
Like
made
that-
characters that are isekai. I will say that.
I have not yet. And I'm not sure if I'm excited or wary on whether or not, because it's an interesting thought for sure. But that aside, I love just having the options to open up roleplay, because a lot of the times when you're playing a tabletop game or TTRP, any type of the sort, it can get very daunting very quickly if you're constantly going back-to-back combat. If you're doing constant, like, mechanically intensive gameplay, having that time to kind of just, like, sit back and, like, roleplay, laugh, make jokes, stuff like that can really, like,
Yeah.
let the dopamine kind of, like, settle down, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think for me as a player, and it comes down to the players really. The table has to be structured correctly for what the
100%.
players want. I like a good mix of RPing and combat, and I want the combat to also facilitate kind of RP. I want abilities like Mold Earth or like Charm or any of these other things to come into play in a really real way.
Story for you.
Yeah.
Oh no, Mold Earth.
Yeah.
So
I almost managed to kill someone with Mold Earth, but it was stone.
Surprised.
Yeah. Go on. Go on.
So we talked about this when we were discussing about setting all this up to do this interview, and there was a story that I want to talk. One of my boss fights where it was so perfectly integrated between both roleplay and mechanical combat, and I essentially designed a boss for my players that was, if they even tried to brute force their way through it, they will fail.
Mm-hmm.
They would have 100% failed, and I had full confidence in doing something like this because I knew, like, once they realized what was happening, they'd be like, oh, we need to, like, think outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. Like, I was greatly impressed with, like, how things turned out. So, as Rungo knows, I have, for one of my campaigns, my party has found a troop of 31 goblins.
Yep.
They have acquired these goblins by killing their previous goblin king, who was a titanical dictator that kept them down so they could not improve. For lore purposes, and they're discovering that in this last session and future sessions. But anyway, his name was Goblin King Mojin, and he had atop his head a golden crown with 3 magical gems, each with their own magical effects in them. One was, I'm not going to give the name of it, but it was a red gem that when the wearer is wearing it, it will add the proficiency bonus to the damage, and all melee damage that they deal becomes healing. A green gem, which was a regeneration gem. While the gem is equipped into your armor, you can regenerate 3d8 hit points at the end of your turn. You can just choose to do this. It's not a bonus action, it's not a reaction, you just choose whether or not you do this. These hit points is saved into the gem, and at dawn, all hit points stored is dealt back to you at that moment. And if you decide to take the crown off, you still take the damage. So it's kind of like a, I'm going to put some healing on loan.
Yeah.
Type of situation. And then last but not least, which really made them have to think, an invulnerability gem is the last gem that was in this crown. As a reaction to taking damage, the wearer can just simply say no. The gem can be used as an infinite number of times, but each time adds 5% to the gem potentially breaking. So it started out at 0%, and each time he decided to say no, I tacked on 5%, rolled a D100, and see if it broke. It got up to about 85% in the fight.
So they just kept rolling good. They just kept rolling really well.
Yeah, I got real lucky on the D100s. I'm like, yeah, that gem's still intact. And I'm like, every time they do it, like, every time it, like, the effect happened, I'm like, yeah, you hit them, and, like, you feel like, because one of them, like, critted, and I'm like, you really feel like there was oomph behind that attack, but it almost, like, brushes off this, like, almost, like, magical barrier upon his skin. And they're like, what the f? And I had them roll an Arcana check, and they realized these gems are doing, like, tomfoolery. Mm-hmm. They were, like, really causing issues. So, one of the characters who's like a fighter, gunslinger type character, he doesn't have a lot of strength, and he realized he would not be able to athletically pull this crown off the top of this Goblin King's head. So what he did was he went invisible, because he was a tiefling and he had the invisibility racial feat, ran up to the goblin, and attempted to acrobatics up to it, because this was like a hobgoblin. He's a tall lad. He was like 9 feet tall, and
he's just a little lad.
9 feet tall, and the player was like about 3.5 feet because he's a like imp tiefling. But he acrobated his way up to the shoulders, and instead of trying to pry open or pry off the crown, he took one of his guns, which in the pommel had its own magical gem that if he landed a melee attack, it would cause a 5-foot knockback effect. So instead of attacking the goblin, he specifically targeted the crown to kind of pop the crown off. And he missed a few times, but eventually he got it. Mm-hmm. Eventually he got it. And the fight after that was just, like, insane. Like, basically, I'm like, oh, now I can get serious with the boss. But yeah, it's like, having that opportunity where you can meld roleplay into the combat gives the players agency to where, like, oh, I can really, like, influence how this happens if I do this a very specific way. Especially a way that, like, would be, like, true to my character. Like, so the gunslinger, his backstory is he's a circus performer. So, like, he basically was, like, doing acrobatic, like, circus tricks to climb up this hobgoblin to get to his crown. And I'm like, dude, I love that. I love that.
I think one of the worst things that they did was get rid of the concept of called shots, because that allows much RP to happen. I at a one-shot at a con, or one time, we were grappling this monster. It was like a spirit possessing a massive hare, and we were fighting it, and someone got grappled by wrapped up in the hair. So I was like, okay, that guy's a better fighter than I am. I was a druid, so I was kind of more spec for support. That guy's a better fighter than I am. So what I did was I said, okay, I have my fiery blade. I'm going to attack it, but I'm not going to attack its main body. I want to attack its arm. I want to attack the massive hair that is grappling my buddy here. And it's just hair, so if I hit it, it should get cut through. And the DM let me do it, despite the fact that, because the big thing is, the rules are the rules, but the number, like, rule 0 is the DM's in charge. The DM can let anything happen that he wants to. That he frickin' wants to. Mammoth, please, this is the one time I'm going to ask you to censor my cursing.
We need, like, a sound effect.
Yeah, a funny sound effect.
Yeah, like a duck quack.
Quack, quack, quack. There you go, there's your sound effect.
Oh, well, you've been doing some Minecraft stuff. Why not, like, the Minecraft noise?
Oh,
the would be a good one, too.
Please, Mammoth.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was thinking just like
oh, no, we're playing Diablo right now. The cow going moo. The moo. Moo! Oh, yeah. There you go.
That's perfect.
That's great.
Poor Mammoth's like, stop making my job harder.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I think he enjoys a little bit when I actually give him direction, because I trust him enough at this point that I was like, just do what you feel's best. And I also get how that's stressful. So the DM let me do that, and because I successfully got the hit, I was able to break my buddy free of the grapple without him having to make a strength check, because he just wasn't grabbed anymore. But I've had a lot of like times when I play with a DM and I try to say, I want to take a called shot for this, and like called shots aren't real anymore. Okay, I get it. They remove called shots from the game for some ridiculous fucking reason, but you can overcome that. You as the DM can overcome that. You don't have to listen to the book. You are God right now. So I like that. One of the things I like when you talk about, to get back to like the mechanics of the game as you explained them, one of the things I kind of like that you talked about was the fact that it's kind of you get more power, you get more abilities by finding these runes, by finding these artifacts that basically give you power. So how does multi-classing work? Because multi-classing in D&D as it is kind of debuffs you in a big way, because now, like, okay, you're level 5 and you multi-class into something else. Well, now you're a level 5 druid and a level 1 rogue or some shit like that. Or some moo like that. And that can be very weakening. That can make you a lot weaker if you don't understand the mechanics really well and how to optimize those levels and blah blah blah. But multi-classing is fun sometimes.
It is. I agree. I think multi-classing is a lot of fun. And like I said, in Runecraft, the main way you gain levels is being taught by someone. So technically, you just find a teacher that can teach you something else. Now, as I mentioned before, though, if you're like usually on the path of a tank and you want to go learn to be stealthy, all that means is that when you go to pay for learning the ability, it's going to cost you a bit more because it's going to take more effort for you to learn. Your teacher's going to have less patience with you.
It's easier to learn a skill, an advanced skill that is already something that you are proficient in.
Yeah, that's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. If you already know how to code, it's pretty easy to learn how to code a specific function. But if you have no idea how to code, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's the main idea.
Yes. So how does leveling work then? Are there hard levels, or is it kind of almost DM driven about what they're going to give you access to? Arash's Tomb.
I think that's the wrong one though. We're looking for the one with the circle on it, half moon.
Yeah. But yeah, is
clear it if you want.
No, it's, I mean, it doesn't matter.
It's okay. You can tell me you're avoiding Duriel. It's fine.
I don't want to fight Duriel. But so are there hard levels? Are there you're a level this 6 character? Is it similar to like Destiny or WoW when it gets to the later point where you have an item level and that's really what matters? Or is it somewhere in between or something completely separate?
So like you guys saying, is there like hard item levels that like limit your progression until you reach that level?
Well, more so like how would you determine a character's overall strength? In D&D, a level 10 is probably going to be stronger than a level 9, stronger than a level 8, stronger than a level 7 of the same class.
Yeah.
But like in WoW, you can be level, whatever the max level is now, level 2000, and have a very low item level or a very high item level. And that will determine your kind of overall strength kind of thing. So is there do your players gain experience and then get to another level and then that unlocks things, or is it more DM driven where it's like, I'm going to tell you, I'm the one that lets you know what items you have access to and what runes you're going to get access to.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely more in the creative hands of the game master to be like, okay, you're going to this dungeon. This is the Dungeon of Darkness. Might be a dark rune in there causing this issues. And so when you get that darkness rune eventually, you can use that once again to barter, but also to enhance your abilities and your gear and weapon. So darkness is a good rune because it's kind of one of the more common ones. I made it based off of stylizing in the culture of like Egyptians, because Egyptians were the first to come up with
very topical.
Yeah, but they came up with the idea of the underworld, which was called Duat. And they were the first one before the Greeks and everyone else came up with it. So a lot of the armor has to do with like putting curses on your targets, or how you handle the curse of a condition. So there's a lot of really things like that, where the light curse is more about radiate light and even like healing as well, which is usually the typical case for light. But it also has the ability to blind targets. So each weapon or rune does a different thing for you. Now, when it comes to your level up, when you do learn a new ability or you gain something from your mentor, you will then roll for increasing your HP and everything like that. And the cool part in Runecraft, when you roll for HP, it's actually based off your vitality modifier, or in other systems would be called Constitution or whatnot. And depending on your modifiers, what dice you actually roll for it.
Okay.
And the cool part with this too, I think this is I find this a lot of fun, is that you will roll, and your GM will also roll, and the GM will hide their roll, and so you get to choose: do you take your roll, or do you take the GM's roll for the health increase? So let's say you rolled poorly, and you're like, ah, crud. I'm gonna take the risk and take the game master's roll for the HP, and they may have rolled a lot better than you did.
Yeah.
And luckily maybe spared you, which also helps bring the average up, because one of the most annoying things in some other tabletop games is that if you do roll for HP and you get one bad roll, your character is really set back.
Yeah.
A lot.
I always take the average.
Yeah.
It's because I don't want to risk it.
That's the safe bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really the safest bet. Oh, I need to go back and grab that staff.
Okay, so that's interesting. But is there a hard level? Like, do you have the concept of level 1 through 20 or whatever? Or is
No,
it
not really.
okay?
Not right now. I mean, I'm sure as people play it and I see, oh, that might be a little bit broken.
Yeah.
I might have to go in there and adjust it.
Yeah.
But since I play tested it, the main idea is that eventually you will have, because when you roll to do your abilities, you roll a d20 and a d10. And so technically in any given turn, you can generate up to 10 energy. You can't go past energy unless you have something else that allows you to, like an item or some ability that may allow you to go over that 10 temporarily.
Okay.
And so the idea is eventually you start off with only 3 abilities, and as you gain levels, you go up. So now I have one that's cost 1, 2, 3, and then I gained a level. Now I can have one that costs 4, or I can make one of my other abilities stronger, or go up until eventually I have an ability that costs for all 10 levels of energy I can hold.
Similar to spell slots, but like not quite the same.
Exactly.
Like you can empower a spell with more energy, but you can also not, and yeah.
And another fun fact or fun thing in the game is that your weapons can also give you abilities, and these, they don't override what you already have. They're an addition. So you can have like armor that gives thorns to like anything that hits you within like a certain distance reflects the damage back to them.
Okay.
So, but that's just like, that could be a passive ability. So I have passive abilities on armors, I have active abilities on armors. It all depends on what you're wielding to use. So that kind of helps flesh out your build more and more.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, Grim, before we move on? Because I've another thing I remember you talked to me about that I thought was super interesting.
No, keep going.
Okay.
I'm loving all this.
Yeah. So one of the things you had mentioned that you were trying to figure out and work out a lot was, and I'm going to relate this to Naruto because I'm a huge weeb. I'm going to relate this to Naruto, but you mentioned the concept of elementals and fusing elements to create different effects, and that's kind of similar to Naruto's jutsu of I'm going to create lava release by combining earth release and fire release, or I'm going to create, I think it's boil release, which is water release, and fire release kind of thing. Yeah. And you have a concept for that in your game, which I find fascinating because I really like game structures and game mechanics that reward intelligent player decisions.
Yes.
So being able to and then allow the DM to reward a player explaining why they're doing this and saying, you know what, that's smart. So you have that concept. How's that working for you?
So my players have yet to discover spellcrafting as the mechanic that I call it, but I do have a specific class that utilizes it. And funny enough, it's not really a spellcasting class per se. So I made a homebrew, and this is what started the mechanic out. I made a homebrew for the monk because the original 2014 monk Way of the Four Elements was like very bare bones. It basically, a lot of the stuff was like, oh, you can add like fire to your unarmed attacks, and it's like, great, that's cool, I guess. Oh, but it also gets 10 feet of reach. Yay. And it's just like, the class was supposed to make you feel like Aang, like an avatar, but it just really didn't grasp that. So I went further beyond, and I made
plus ultra.
Yes. I made my variant of the Way of the Four Elements, and it really brings to heart like that essence of an avatar. So you get like you can create spoilers, by the way. I mean, the show's been out for ages.
Yeah, it's on them at
There's
this point.
there's the end scene where Aang like takes all 4 elements and he starts wrapping it around him like a cloak. Like you have the rocks that spin around him and like the air bubble and fire and water like halo. Like you can do that with this class. You can create cloaks, and essentially as you progress in the class, as you get higher level, you can take on a new element to learn, and then you get new quote-unquote spells that utilize those 2 elements. Like, for example, like if you start off with fire and grab air later, you can make smoke bombs and stuff like that by like basically snuffing out the flames. But yeah, in terms of the actual mechanic of spellcrafting, how it works mechanically is you choose a spell that you wish to have as the base. For example, say Fireball, and the Wizard Classic, and you choose to use your hold action on casting it. And because of how hold action works, is you typically decide, oh, I'm gonna wait till like X target moves closer or moves in this position or some other effect. So I'm like, I'm gonna go even further with that. I'm gonna hold my action to cast another spell my next turn. And when your next turn comes around, you choose a different spell, and then you cast that on top of your previous spell. So, for example, oh, I'm going to cast base Fireball. My next turn comes around. I'm just going to cast another Fireball. Both level 2. I'm going to spend 4 spell slots for this. I also use a mana system for this, so like the math is a lot more easier to keep track of other than like the spell slot type deal. But point is, you do that, I have you roll an Arcana check, and if you do really well on it, because it's based on, I basically do have a chart of like, it's like base, like, I think it's like the standard is like 10 plus the spell level plus the, like there's another thing that again, they haven't used that in a long time, so I haven't had to pull it up. But if you succeed, good things happen. And typically, like in this case, like you would cast both those spells, and you would essentially learn as a caster, being like, "Hey, I can do this. If I, focus on doing this, do this more in combat, maybe I can make it into an actual spell." And that's how a lot of spells in previous campaigns and have turned out. I had a player who took a fireball and then took a wind spell. I think he took like a not gust of wind. It was like a higher level wind spell. I think it was wind wall. He casted both of those over the course of 2 turns and made a flame tornado. Is basically how I drew it up. And he eventually learned how to do this, so he gained a flame tornado spell that he could just cast without having to hold his action anymore. So he's like, "Can I go even further with this?" And I'm like, "I don't know, can you?" So he held his flame tornado spell future sessions and then double cast them to try to create a giant, like, massive tornado.
Yeah. I mean, I think
But
that's really cool. I think it's really cool to have, like, you've done something so proficiently that now you can just do that. That's just something you can do.
But that's what mages are, though. Like, mages are meant to learn how to not just do spells that already exist, but potentially make their own. That, like, it's like science. Like, the whole idea of, like, an engineer or science is to essentially innovate what already exists and make it better. Or learn how to do something that others can't.
Yeah. And that's kind of like artificers and mages should be the ones that are kind of allowed to do that and allowed to more than any other class allowed to BS a little bit, more allowed to kind of fool around with the rules a little bit, fool around with the rules as written a little bit.
Oh, well, I have because magic is very prevalent in my world, so even like barbarians and fighters can get access to it through like magical like gems and whatnot to like put in their weapons so they can cast spells too, essentially. I showcased her name is Rov, R-O-V, one of my NPCs. She is if you've seen the show Fairy Tale, she's essentially Urza, essentially, where she has basically a bunch of weapons in a pocket dimension that she can summon in combat.
She's 10/10.
Yeah.
She's 10/10.
So essentially, without needing scrolls, like she could just do it.
Yeah.
She had a spear that had an enchantment in it that she could use a bonus action to cause it to move 15 feet in her direction. So if she threw it, she could bonus action, have it come 15 feet back towards her. So what I basically did with her is she would throw the spear to lodge it into the target and then use a bonus action to yank them towards her. Basically Scorpion without the need of a chain.
Yeah.
And on top of that, she had a earth cracking hammer. So she basically had like mowed earth on her hammer. So when she slammed it into the ground, it would like create like a mini boulder. So what I had her do in combat, because she gets extra attacks, is hammer first, switch to the spear, jam it into the rock, and then she would dash towards the target behind them, which they would be like within 10 feet between her and the boulder. She would use a bonus action, causing the giant rock and spear to come hurtling towards her, but to the target that's in between them. Like, to showcase basically what even melee characters can potentially do if they're, creative enough. If they're just like,
Yeah.
you have the tools. If you can think it, we'll make this work. If you can realistically explain to me how you would make this work, I'd be like, yeah, we'll roll to see if that roll to see if that happens. Let's do it.
Reward creativity, 100%. Now,
Absolutely.
Now, Mass, do you have a similar system with yours?
Of where you can create your own spells?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea, is that this original book is kind of to get you started, and then eventually you could write up your own abilities, technically.
Okay.
So that's the idea, is that you would go find a mentor and learn, but then eventually maybe you've accomplished enough, you can start making your own thing. And eventually, because I keep saying this,
It's edition 1. It's edition 1. So
yeah, the idea is, and I hinted at this in the book at the idea of this void rune that we haven't discovered yet, is that a dwarf was experimenting by using multiple runes on one particular item. It was a hammer, and launched it into space, and it never came back down. So we just theorized that there's something up there.
yeah, it was the world's fastest moving object, that manhole cover that got blasted by a nuke. That's what he just did.
Exactly.
He just blasted a manhole cover into space, and let's hope aliens don't get hit by it and pissed off.
I'm actually curious to hear Grimm's response to I created a social system in the game.
Okay.
Because, like you said, a lot of it has to do with interactions with the players and into the world, right? So I designed a social system that uses, it's going to sound a little odd, rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
It's a universal game, so it should be something that most people know, and I explain it very briefly because I imagine most people should know what rock, paper, scissors is.
Yep.
But rock represents, like violence. Scissors represent reason, and paper represents compliments.
Okay.
More or less, like appealing to someone's nature. And
Okay.
so the DM or the game master may already know what the NPC or who they're interacting with, maybe know what the response is already, but the player will try to rock, paper, scissors, win rock, paper, scissors to get through that social interaction. And I actually have a class where you get like a second chance, like best 2 out of 3 instead of just one shot. But I kind of plays in the idea that when you talk to people, that you don't always know how they're going to respond to you, even if you have the best intentions. You could go in there and be like, "Hey, I think you're such a great person." Like, up yours, buddy, and it'd be like, "Whoa, that's not how I saw this conversation going." But I know I thought that it made it a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable, that even people at young ages could understand. Okay, I know what rock, paper, scissors is.
Right. No, that's a very fun system, and I agree. Like, those who don't have experience in tabletop games or TPGs or anything of the sort, that's very easy to understand and very easy to pick up, because again, everyone knows rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
It's obviously in different cultures. It's been called different names.
Rochambeau, rock, paper, scissors. Yep. No, there's another one I can't remember. Go on.
There's like something shears or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Parchment shear, like the old timey version.
The British should probably have some weird name for it, like Jumbly Bumblers or some shit like that.
Jumbly
Jumbly Bumblies.
Rick,
We're gonna
parchment
play a game of
shears.
Jumbly Bumblies. We're gonna play a game of knife, crazy laws about bullying online, and savory scones. Which, if you're not aware, that's apparently what they call what we Americans correctly call a biscuit.
Oh
In-
no, let's not get into that argument again.
In terms of social system for me, like it's very much so like each region in my world has their own culture, and when the players go to these regions, they learn more about the cultures if the character isn't already from there. If the character's from there, I'll be like, oh yeah, you would know this as a character because this is your homeland, yada yada yada. But one thing my players know is anything that they are currently doing in that given moment, everywhere else in the world is still very much alive. It's still very much doing stuff. So like, oh, like they helped out this bookshelf over in one of the tourist cities. It's just like she's still like making money and whatnot, and I'm keeping tabs like day by day, like as they progress in the story, as they progress in-game time.
Yeah.
I'm being like, this stuff is happening based on who they've met and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And
Go on.
one of my biggest compliments that I've gotten from my players, because he uses ChatGPT to keep track of his campaigns, because like it is a lot of information to like keep track of if you're doing like a fairly larger campaign. So he's basically just using ChatGPT as like a spreadsheet type deal. But he gave me a compliment being like, I don't know what's powering your skyscraper of a mind, but how do you keep track of this? And I'm like, I just do. And one of my other players was like, well, he's got
The
all those
trick's
notebooks over there.
autism.
Yeah. Well, but I had another player that's just like, oh, well, he has all those notebooks over there in the corner. I'm like, oh, these? And I have like 12 notebooks, and I pick them all up, put them in the middle of the table. They're like, have a look. They all open them, and they're like, these are all empty. I'm like, yeah, I don't use them. I don't use them. I just don't use them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's nice to have that sense of, again,
Continuity.
That's continuity, but it's nice to have that space to where your players can feel like they're a part of the world. So having like a good social system that they can understand, that they can follow with, is just only pulls them in more.
Yeah.
I mean, I at one point, just kind of on that same note, because I like when there's ongoing consequences, both positive or negative, because the consequence doesn't have to be negative, but consequences to player actions in general. Like at one point, in a previous campaign I was in with, I've talked about that horrible person.
Oh no.
I-
Thou who should not be named.
That who should not be named. I started a cult. And I rolled really well, and I got followers, and there was this ongoing thing going on of like, I could tell whenever I went back to the home base, the city that this cult was founded in, I was going to be allowed to go back and tell them like, hey, I want you to work on this next. So I had them building us a ship. I had them building a temple. I had them doing this. I mean, it expanded beyond the point of being a cult and being like a bona fide religion. But then when I've DM'd sessions before, because the way we do our campaign right now is it's not a campaign. It's, alternating sessions being hosted by a different DM at the table. I keep track of how much time is passing. There are consequences if the players decide to take too long to do something. Positive or negative consequences. So, like, okay, they decide to take a long rest, and now it's going to take them an extra amount of time to do this thing. I don't like nitpick like, okay, this battle took 38 minutes and this one took 12, but like general time frames of the world is progressing in a way you might not be aware of it, but at the end I'm going to explain to you how this happened and how we got to this point, and if you had done this sooner or done that sooner, this might have been what happened, and this might have been what happened. Like, okay, if you take one too many long rests, these people that are aware of what you're doing, they're going to catch up to you, and now you're going to have an extra kind of thing. It's kind of thing like that. And I think I like that. It's easier to do in campaigns right now. I'm not in an actual campaign. It's alternating sessions, whatnot. But I like when DMs keep track of progressing worlds like that. Do we have anything more to say on the social aspect, or I have another thing I want to divert to with that? Okay, so with you explained the TTARPG system versus TTRPG system, basically having a mana system versus spell slots. I guess that's almost similar to like the way sorcerer meta magic works,
Yeah,
almost.
they have. Well, I mean, they have a secondary resource system to
Yeah.
do their effects. They still technically use spell slots. I believe.
Yeah.
I haven't played a sorcerer in ages.
Yeah. So with that mask, how difficult do you think it will be to balance encounters with your system? Because of the fact that a lot of times, like you as a DM, you can balance encounter around the okay. I look at my player sheets. I know how many spells they're going to have how many spell slots are going to have available to them, so I can make this encounter drain their spell slots. True.
Like for DMs that are picking up your game,
Yeah.
especially those who aren't like particularly experienced in DM.
Yeah.
How easy is it going to be able to like create encounters without like using a source book or something
That
along the lines?
either are not overly hard or overly easy.
Yeah.
I've created for the core rulebook. I've did a lot of generators, like for the mentors, for even helping with make your characters. But I also did like a very brief one for monsters, and pretty much the idea is that monsters, just like items, have different affixes, and so they challenge players in a way that another player character wouldn't, and so it makes it a little more streamlined.
Yeah.
But I am going to be going in a lot more detail with the next book, which is going to be all about running adventures, monsters, and all that jazz. And I'm also going to be introducing a couple more classes in it as well that didn't make it into the first version. But a good example is, like, I provide an example in the core rulebook of like more like a boss end monster, and the affects and what it does is more of a reaction or retaliates to how the players engage it.
Okay.
So that allows it so it's easier to scale, because then you're scaling it based off what your players pretty much can and can't do. Now the cool part is the dice bring all the luck, right? And all the strategies to the table. You only get so many resources. You only get so many things you can do. Now, I will also say that if you use energy, like on your turn, but you don't use all of it, it rolls over to your next turn. It's just you're limited to a maximum of 10 unless you have something that allows you to go over that, at least temporarily.
Okay.
So when it comes to the monsters, there's like certain affects. Like I think the one I put in the back as an example was Anubis. Let's talk about the darkness rune. And
I'm gonna need a portal. I'm gonna need a portal mask.
Oh no! What happened to you?
I died.
Let go of my mouse for 1 second.
I died. But go on.
I got you a portal.
Thank you.
Must have been that fire breather. Those guys do so much damage.
No, it was a fetish. I'm just bad.
Oh, no. Are you still probably wearing the same armor?
Yeah, I'm still wearing the armor from Act 1. Go on.
Oh, I lost my train of thought a little bit. The Anubis. And so I have it where, like, every time you hit the Anubis, who's like a cursed general, it'll apply a curse on you. If you have a stack of 3 curses on you, your round ends, and Anubis next round will get to control you. So it gives a limitation, or like things like, it'll have like thorns or reflect damage of certain types. So you have to think about how you engage with certain things. So like I have a spined werewolf, which is like a werewolf. Think of it like quills or like a porcupine coming out its back. And like that would have like more of a reflect damage type of property, where like, if you would engage with it like a certain physical attack or a certain range, it will send out a quill at you. But if you engage it from this distance, it can't do that. Like if you're like face to face with it, you can't really shoot like a ranged attack at you as effectively as someone who's out a little bit further.
Yeah. So
and then I also have range bands. So like if you need to know mid-range, short range, far range, it's all listed as like a quick guide in feet and in meters and spaces, of course, if you're on.
Nah, freedom units. I'll only support you if it's freedom units.
Only freedom units?
As someone who specifically prefers metric, I'm only going to support you if it's freedom units. America. So you said with that, because one of the things that I have tried to do this as when I DM sessions before, I know that like I want this encounter to be hard. I want it to be punishing, or I don't want them to win it. Like, this is not a fight that they're supposed to win. I want them to retreat from it because I have some reason to do that. One of the things that I've done before, and I think it's sometimes a funny way to do it, is you do it as a battle of attrition, where, okay, I'm playing against mostly spellcasters, or I'm DMing for mostly spellcasters, so I just make them waste all their spell slots, so they're like, shit, I got to get out of here, kind of thing. But you said or implied in some way that these I'm going to call it mana. These mana points regenerate, like they come back through a battle. So that kind of removes the concept of a battle of attrition, which might change the balancing a little bit. But how does one go about, like, is it every turn based on a certain ability you get a mana point back? Is it you have to do something in the middle of a battle to get mana points back? What is the
Okay, I see what you're saying. So what generates the energy?
Yeah, what generates the energy that's used for spellcasting?
At the beginning of your turn, you will make an attack.
Mhm.
You'll roll your d20 to see what your accuracy is, and then you'll roll the d10. Yeah, we got to have some bound accuracy in there somewhere, right?
Mhm.
So you get a d10, and then the d10 will tell you how much energy you have generated with that attack. Even if you miss, you'll generate energy.
Mhm.
And then from that energy pool, that's when you can do your additional stuff. So if I want to dive, and then shoot like my gun or shoot my crossbow and a dive attack, I can then consume 3 energy, dive. It increases my defense because I'm doing a defensive maneuver, but I also get to then shoot my crossbow during that time. So then I can do an additional shot or additional weapon damage. And so most things are based off of actually the weapon and how you use them too. So that's another really amazing thing in Runecraft is how you wield your weapon and how you use it affects the play style. So if you have a one-handed weapon but you have nothing in your offhand, if someone goes to attack you and they miss, you can counter.
Yeah.
Now I will say counters on the basic version do not generate energy because it's supposed to be just like quick instinct of just smack.
Yeah.
But if you get an item later on, or your GM makes you one, or something comes up, it gives that a creativity opportunity to be like, hey, now I can generate 1 energy per counterattack I do. But then also it applies to other things like hammers. I have 2-handed hammers in the base kit for the core book, and they deliver more newtons of force of energy than pretty much
Did
any
you
other
really
weapon
just do
'cause it's
newtons?
integrated.
Did you really just do newtons of force?
Yes, I actually measured out newtons to find out what the lethal amount of force would be and comparing it and to determine the dice for each weapon.
So you did straight hard math to determine, instead of this like
Oh, yeah,
craziness
I
where
know
like,
how-
oh,
I
a
know
regular
what you
weapon
need
attack
to
is
get
yeah.
to be considered lethal force.
So okay, so then how do improvised weapons works in your system? Just to throw a little, haha at you.
Okay, like you're punching, or like if you picked
Like
up a knife
improvised,
off a
like
table?
you pick up a stick and you're using it as a weapon or any sort of thing like that. Because more often than not, I see DMs rule an improvised weapon is 1d4. Whatever it is, it's 1d4. Which
I
is
hate D4s. I'm
yeah,
gonna be straight
it's
up.
it's the
I
most
hate
useless.
D4s.
At best, you're doing almost no damage. At best, you might kill a
Yeah.
commoner. That's it. But I tend to appreciate like when it's like, okay, this is improvised weapon. It's going to be pretty cool. Like I've done it where I've thrown oil at someone before and set it on fire, and they're like, well, it's supposed to be 1d4. It's like I set someone on fire.
Yeah,
That's
I
going to
agree.
do more damage than 1d4.
I wouldn't even call that improvised weapon at that point. I think you just made like a Molotov
Yeah.
cocktail.
Yes, but on that note, like yeah, one
Which, funny enough, actually has a stat block.
Molotov
Yes,
cocktail,
it
yeah.
should.
Yes.
But if you make the Molotov cocktail by yourself, then it's improvised 1d4 used oil, whatever, blah blah blah. But if you get the Molotov, so, yeah, I've always kind of hated the way improvised weapons have worked for a lot of people. I think there should be some level of DM looking in it and saying, well, okay, so on that, because now I'm going on a completely different path than what I was originally going. Do you have in the rule book like a guide for DMs to use when determining how much damage something should do? Like, okay, these people created, because a lot of your stuff seems like it's improvisational almost. Like the players can improvise and come up with stuff on the fly, which I think is a really cool system. There is a hard set of rules, obviously, but like it opens up the door for improvisation. So is there a guide for DMs to handle that improvisation?
Oh yeah, I have it literally on the back cover.
Yeah.
So like on the back side of the cover, you can flip it open, quick look up, and the idea is that general rule is that if he uses one hand, it should be a d6. If he uses
Okay.
two hands, that's a 2d6. But in some cases, it'll be for the hammer, which has more newtons of force. It'll be a 2d8.
Okay.
So when I say I want to dive and make an attack roll, and that uses one weapon dice. Well, the
Okay.
weapon dice is the assigned dice of the item. So like the hammer would be a 1d8, whereas spear would be a 1d6.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Even if you're using it with two hands, the spear is pretty much it's like a dagger on a stick. Let's be honest. The daggers are great. Spears are fantastic, but you get that extra reach.
Yeah.
And that's the huge benefit of it.
Yeah. Now, okay, so did you work in the concept of, because I was a LARPer and I enjoy LARP and whatnot, so one of the biggest ways you fight a spear is you dodge the attack, you dive in on it, you grab the weapon, and now they can't stab you because the spear's over there, essentially the head of the spear's over there, and you're right here. Is there something like that worked in where weapons have a minimum range? Because logically, if you're going to use a great sword, you're not going to use it as effectively if the dude's right in your face. But you might be able to use a dagger or a short sword.
I have not built in a minimum range yet for
Okay.
things. I will say that, but I will say that I'm trying to keep it a bit simpler.
Yeah.
Because
and
I
that
also
does
have to
become a
build the
frustrating
younger
thing.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine it'd be like, well, why can't I use this in this? And it'd be like, well, because he's right up in your face. I'm like, but it's a melee weapon. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, tough cookies.
No, because that just kind of that triggered that mind of mine. Okay, so
But you may have an ability that does what you're asking for in a different way. And actually, the Thorns armor I was talking about before actually is my Swordbreaker armor, which is so cool. It literally, I don't know if you're familiar with the item of Swordbreaker.
I know what a
which
sword
has-
breaker is.
Yeah, it pretty much is a sword that looks like a bunch of key slots on the back
Yeah.
of it, which is supposed to catch blades. And so the armor, it's a great helm that curls up with like horns, but in the horns itself are the Swordbreaker, like kind of like the key part. And so you could catch an opponent's blade, and if it's a bladed weapon, you can then break their blade and reduce their attacks or potential for attacks by, half.
Mm-hmm.
Depending what actually the amount of attacks they actually do. Rounded up, of course, and I do round it up just because I want the players to have more. I don't like when people round down a lot.
It should always favor the player. Ultimately, the goal
Yeah.
it should be challenging, but the goal should be for the players to have a good time. It should not be about the DM winning. If you're a DM that feels like you need to win, you don't need to be DMing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest though, I don't think rounding up for the DM in the way my system's designed is gonna make any much of a difference.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised. I'm sure I'm gonna regret saying that. Someone's like, I played Runecraft, and now I can never round up for monsters ever again. And I'd be like, God dang it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might eat those words.
Yeah, you're going to feed them right to you. I'm going to make a cake that says you can never round up ever again. And I'm going to shove it straight. That's going to be your wedding. I'm going to make your wedding cake. Whoever you hire to make your wedding cake, I'm going to
Oh,
kidnap
no.
them, and I'm going to make the cake. And it's going to
Why
say
do-
exactly that.
Why do you have to ruin cake like that? It's a sacred object.
Okay, so yeah, that was something I was kind of wondering about. Any thoughts on that, Grim?
I was just gonna say, as a DM, I always win when my players are having a fun time.
Yeah, that
so-
should be what your goal is. What I mean is, your goal shouldn't be to win combat. It shouldn't be to kill players.
Yeah.
If you need to
Not
punch the
Dead by
player,
Daylight. It's
yeah.
not 1v4. You're not
Yeah.
doing like some PvP session. Like if you're choosing to DM, you are creating a story and an environment for your friends to enjoy. Like
Yeah.
DMing is very much so for people who like to do stories.
Yeah.
Essentially, not
Yeah.
narcissists who love power trips.
Yeah, but we can get
I
more
agree
into
with
that
that.
when we talk about like the game master side of this. One of the questions I had for you. So your system seems like, at least the way it's reading to me, I understand how the magic system works really well. But then you said something about like energy system when you're as a martial class. So how do martial classes work in your system?
So I know you called it mana, and I'm sure us playing Diablo is not helping that
Yeah.
concept.
Well, you said
Um,
energy. You did say energy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a stored energy.
use
Think of it more like kinetic energy, right?
Yeah.
And if you're running for your life, you're going to be using a lot more energy and force than if you're running on a treadmill.
Okay.
Right.
So as you're in combat and you're doing your actions, and like I said, that original attack, you generate that energy. You could use that to then fuel abilities that aren't just magic abilities.
Okay.
So like you said, you wanted to see about maybe moving a spearhead out of the way. Maybe that could be something that could be part of a class or an ability you want to design. And so you write that up for my 3rd energy that consumes 3 energy to do this. I'll dive forward, closing the gap, and if they have this certain weapon that has like a pole arm, like, or a spear like shaft,
Mhm.
then I can maybe push that aside to maybe prevent one of their attacks. And a way that could be represented is in the system we also have different conditions that you probably have seen in other games, but maybe not necessarily in TTRPGs, but like a shielded condition. Maybe it gives you potential that you could take a source of damage and not take anything from one source of damage
Yeah.
for a round.
So even for
Or
the martial
like that.
classes, it is, you have a spellcaster has 10 energy,
Oh,
a
yeah.
martial class has 10 energy. That determines everything that they can do that round and the things that they do. So effectively, you can do 10 things that require 1 energy, or you can do 3 things that require 3 energy and 1 thing that requires 1 energy, and that's your round.
Yeah, unless the ability says you could only do it like once a round.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there'll be certain ones that are like they're just very strong, and like if they were to be more than once a round, then
Yeah.
it would be absurd.
Yeah, and like I
Um,
love to spell Scarlet Dawn. If I was allowed to do Scarlet Dawn 7 times a round, then I would win every combat.
You'd also kill your entire party in the
Yeah,
process.
fuck them. Yeah, moo,
Moo.
moo.
Moo,
Uh,
huh?
yeah.
Really, you're gonna milk your party? That's a strange
Oh
way
yeah,
to go
yeah. I'm
about
gonna
it.
I'm gonna milk them. But with
God,
with
I hate
the
this.
leveling system then, so you described like runes as that's a way to unlock abilities and spells and stuff like that. Is that also how like martial classes unlock new abilities? Is through a similar
yeah.
rune system? Can you kind of go into detail how that would work, both from a
That's exactly correct.
practical
It would be the
standpoint and
same
an
for
RP
both.
standpoint?
Yeah, but no, that's exactly right. So instead of like going to a mage to learn your abilities, you may go to like a monk or
Yeah.
whoever you're trying to learn that specific ability from. And you may be trying to find some, maybe a gladiator. Maybe you go to the gladiatorial arena and you're like, hey, I want to learn intimidation tactics. Well, who better than a gladiator?
And is that still bound to the concept of these runes then? Or is
Yeah,
it
you
like
would
you're
pay the-
trading runes to be taught that?
Yeah, yeah. So runes not only are like the physical manifestations of magic, they're also the currency.
Okay.
But don't say there's nothing that treasure isn't have any worth to it. It just if you could trade magical rocks that can literally create fire or create
Yeah.
water for your crops, that's a lot of worth, especially in places where, in a desert where you can't get a lot of water. So you could go to one place where you get a lot of water runes and then go travel to the desert and sell them for profit.
Yeah. So from like an RP standpoint, then just to hammer down on that side a little bit, from an RP standpoint, the magic classes are actively using the runes to cast their abilities or to use their abilities. The martial classes are kind of just using them as a currency that they are learning new abilities with.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, well, I'll correct that just a little bit.
Okay.
You're right, but also just need to tweak it.
Okay.
The runes at the beginning of the day, you can infuse them into a weapon,
Okay.
and so there's staffs, ranged weapons. There's bows, guns, swords, short swords at the moment, shields, and hammers are all in the base kit of the game. There's over 100 different weapon combinations in the core rule book, with beautiful art with them, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous.
You want to go ahead and plug your artist?
Yeah, Ricardo Rector. He works. I think he's in the Philippines. Our time constraint was, oh man, just brutal. But he does a lot of fantastic artwork with dinosaurs and like Godzilla and like these really cool scale things. So he was fantastic. When we started working on the dragons, I'm like, this is my guy. He's just the art looks fantastic, and you could definitely see when it comes to the dragon parts or parts that use dragons or other things like that. That's definitely more of his wheelhouse, but his weapon art is fantastic.
Okay.
I literally cannot praise enough how much hard work he's put into this. But at the same time, I hired him as a freelance artist for this project, and I've paid him very well. It's not like he's been shafted in any way.
Yeah.
In that case. But,
And then again, like I'll mention it right now, real quick, just to get ahead of it. Mask does not have a Kickstarter yet, but keep an ear out just in case he decides to start one. As you said, your rule book is ready, but you still have other stuff that you need to work on, and that does cost money because Mask is a good man and he pays his artists. and as
Yeah.
you should.
Yeah, and we've also and I founded my own company to be the foundation for making this book. So it's all private. It's all me, sole proprietorship. And I've sworn to not use AI art and not use AI generation in any part of my projects.
Mhm.
And nowadays, I feel like some people they either have is a huge red flag or like, oh, that's a great thing. And I personally think that we should just be trying to support other humans. That's
Yeah.
it. Like humanity should come first, and I feel like if you're making a product for people, it should come from people.
Yeah, and inherently AI is stealing from artists who have put in work because it's using art to generate.
Yeah.
It's using art as a base to generate that AI, but 9 times out of 10, those artists were not paid for that. But that's I wanted to do that side note before you went on.
I know we've talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah, and like I said, he doesn't have it, but keep an eye out just in case he decides to start one.
Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
I
getting a little-
sidetracked us. That's my fault.
Oh, I thought I sidetracked it.
No, because I brought up the thing. You were talking about the hiring Ricardo and working on that. Where did we start from there? Chat, how did we get there?
I know, I walked away.
A bit simpler, but using newtons of force, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got me, Miles. Well, that's how I calculated to know what dice to use.
Yeah.
That way, I can represent the super sciencey part by.
I think a lot of people
representing
appreciate that. But we hopefully we'll remember what I interrupted us for, because I don't want to forget.
I knew you were talking about martial stuff, and that's why I was wondering if.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, how the martial classes worked, and how the runes worked for the martial classes. You said that they, after a long rest, they imbue their things. Then we went on to the fact that you hired Ricardo to help design some of the weapons and everything there.
Well, I can pick up from there. So, when you imbue your item, you will unlock, like, let's say, a staff of darkness, or a staff of light, or a staff of ground magic, and each of them have their own special abilities on top of what they mainly do. But if you wield a staff, I actually combined staffs and spears and pull arms into the same category. I feel like, why not just throw a blade on a spear? Now you gotta, so throw a blade on a staff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that just seems like a logical response to me. Not all staffs are going to have it, but like, I figured the category of weapons, those two are kind of in the same neck of woods. And so for those weapons, you have the choice when you make an attack. Like I said, in the beginning of your turn, you make an attack to generate energy. You can choose to make a ranged magic attack based off the element of your weapon. So if you put a rune in it that is of earth, it's not earth, ground, and it'll send a ground-based attack, a magic attack to your target, maybe launch like a boulder over there to them. And so that would be your original attack. And so that's what influences your pretty much your magical part before you get to even your abilities.
Okay.
So the combat can be very crunchy at times, but I feel like, I think that's just just growing pains.
Yeah, it's I mean, you kind of get that with D&D as well, where it's if you got a lot of people that don't know the system, it takes a while to go through any round of combat. Or if you got people that want to do something and the DM's not aware of how it works and blah blah blah, like the amount of times that we spend at my table looking up the rules to be like, is that how that works? And then arguing if there's no clear, arguing about this is why I think that should work. Like I had in the last session that I hosted, we had a kobold that wanted to use his trip attack to trip a dragon, and I said no.
Oh, whoa.
I said no, and he's like,
Okay,
"What?" All it says is,
how are you going about that?
all it says is anything that's larger, anything that's medium to large. I was like, okay, but that was written for a character that is a medium. That is written on the basis of a character that is medium.
Well,
you are 2.5 feet tall. You're not tripping a dragon.
Well, the thing is, like, yes, even mechanic-wise, it still wouldn't work because dragons aren't large; they're gigantic, are they not?
But it said any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than-
Well, it wasn't a full dragon. It was a young dragon.
Okay.
Yeah.
They would be large.
Yeah, they were large, but I
Huh.
had to DM rule that. It's like there's the spirit of rules, and then there's the rules as written. The spirit of the rules, I think, is it was written. Trip was written for the average player that's going to play a medium, like a humanoid, is medium sized. So
to me, if my
yeah.
player could explain to me how logically they would be able to feasibly do that,
Mhm.
I would
right.
make him roll a d20 for it. I'd be like, you know
Yeah.
what? Roll an acrobatics and athletics check.
My-
Let's see how well this goes.
My big arguments for why that wouldn't work to him was that all you can do at most is try to trip one leg, and he might stumble a little bit, but it's a dragon; it's on
Right.
4 legs. And 2, you are so big that if you try to trip it, part of me would want to rule that it steps on you. You just got
tripping's
punted across the room. Good job.
Well, but tripping's like it knocks him prone if I remember the mechanic correctly.
Yeah.
So instead of knocking him prone, like if he succeeds, all right, so it like knocks him off balance, so the dragon's next attack will be at disadvantage.
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah. But was that even related to
Anyway.
what we were saying?
Anyway,
Where are we?
semantics.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanna say about like your system and the way it's running? Because I think we've gone on for about an hour and 14 minutes now. I love that I said about and then I gave an exact number. An hour, 14 minutes, and 20 seconds. About. Anything else that you kind of want to clarify about your system? Or anything unique about the system that differentiates it from D&D, maybe?
I think the first part is just using energy to make the combat thematic is a lot of fun. But I think a big part of it is, I think Grim touched on it, was the fact that giving more player agency to be creative in situations that may not have had that available before, to allow it to be more, I guess, player narrative driven. And like I said, the rock, paper, scissors, it seems silly, but it's a great way to encourage, because you may not have to do that, right? Like if you want to do something simple, you're not going to do rock, paper, scissors to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, but like if you want to talk to the barkeep and get information out, you know, they may be predisposed, like, oh, you slide over a coin, and be like, well then, you know, they may be more keen to help you, but how do you represent that? And I think that the rock, paper, scissors, maybe getting an extra chance, or even just
They don't like
influence. Yeah, but it could be like, it could be more of a way to influence what the outcome is in rock, paper, scissors. So if you like give them that, slide that coin over, they may be more lenient to, you know, maybe getting more compliments, you know, instead of, you know, responding to violence.
Yeah.
It may be like, hey, you know, this guy is willing to work with me, I should be willing to work with them. Flattery goes a long way if people, you know, if we're done the right way.
Not if you're an incredibly paranoid person, then flattery sets you off. Like you try to flatter me, I'm going to be like, what the f are you talking? What the moo are you talking about? Moo.
I will say though, I wrote down at the bottom, like I put like little excerpts in the book as like little jokes, and I say crying is a fourth option, doesn't do much.
So that's actually another thing. You brought back up the rock, paper, scissors thing, and the way you described balancing encounters earlier, you described it as there's things that are good against things. Is it almost like, at least at base level, a rock, paper, scissors system on how encounters might be balanced? Like, okay, you have a rogue, and this type of creature is good against rogues, or this type of spell is good against that. So like you can kind of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah,
This beats that
tilt
versus
the
that.
scales a little bit in your favor, and that's what preparation should be.
Yeah.
And another cool thing with that is that you every day you can take your rune out of your weapon and put a different one in, or in your armor and change that. But you can only do one per day. So that means if you're planning your groups, like, hey, we're gonna go hit up this dungeon, or we're gonna go raid the castle, then what should you be expecting in that particular area? What is the area known for? So it actually proves to, like, you get value out of the history and the lore of the location, and even the ecology of the monsters nearby.
Doing the background work.
What was that?
Like doing the background work as a player, of being like, yeah, we're actually going to investigate this area. We're going to talk to the locals and help determine what we might need in this fight, kind of that way. More rewarding.
Yes, it makes lore so much more valuable. As much as lore is so much fun, sometimes it goes on forever, and you want to get to the key aspects, and you're like, okay, this place is a trading city, they trade silver here. Okay, why is it important to trade silver here? Oh, they fight a lot of werewolves and things that are weak to silver, so they export, import a lot of silver. Okay, well then maybe I should look into something along those lines for preparing for combat that day.
Yeah. Make it easier for me to fight a werewolf kind of deal.
Yeah, like you said, like the previously before we started this call, Zach was talking about how he's part of a campaign that was stealth heavy.
Yeah.
That's like a prerequisite. Like the game master would give you a heads up. Hey, you're going into a location that may have a lot of poison. You might want to look into something to handle the poison
Yeah.
in the area.
And then kind of reward the players for doing the work to actually, talk. Because like I've had a lot of, pretty much every session I personally hosted, I have hints that they can unlock as to what might be useful to them if they bother to RP with the player. And RP with them,
Yeah.
right? Because I've also had situations like, well, we talked to them. It's like, yeah, you went and said hello. Do you know anything? And they're like, not really. But you didn't ask questions. You didn't like what is interesting to them might not be interesting to you, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I like about the rock paper scissors method is that encourages players to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you play other systems and you just roll and they're just like, well, you rolled poorly, you don't get information. Well, it's like, what? But is this person just not like me? Like, what's the main reason for
Yeah.
all for the different variations between a success, a massive success versus a massive failure?
Yeah.
And I feel like rock paper scissors feels a little more representative of real conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I had a DM that kind of did that a lot, and then I started to adopt that where, like, okay, you rolled well, convince me.
Yeah,
You rolled well,
exactly.
or let's role play this out, and based on if you role play, it's going to be determined how good that roll went. If you fail a roll, then you don't even get the opportunity. I'm just going to tell you, nah, I don't want to talk to you. But if you roll well, then if you roll a nat 20, can you drop your
Oh, I went to the wrong portal actually.
Yeah.
No, I got rid of my portals. Are you serious? I have to go walk. I see you on the map though. I'm gonna walk over to you.
I just realized I need to buy more
Yeah,
town portal. But yeah, so there's that level of like, it is a tabletop turn-based role-playing game, and that role-playing part needs to be adhered to sometimes if you want to unlock stuff. And I've had people like complain like, well, you didn't warn us about this, you didn't tell us about this. I'm like, you had an opportunity, you had the chance, you didn't take it, or you took it but you didn't take it correctly.
yeah. I think the hard part is some people don't understand the role play aspect, or they're new to it and they're learning.
Yeah.
And I think that having this system in place will help encourage those who are maybe it's new to them, they want to learn, but they don't not sure how about to go about doing it. I think this would be a great step in that direction.
Yeah, it feeds them a lot of like the tools, and then as they get better and as the table understands it more, they can start hunkering down on it a bit.
Yeah, and then maybe at some point they make such a good argument. The DM's like, "We're not even going to do rock paper scissors. I'm just going to give you the information."
Yeah,
that's
and
it was such a good argument.
And encourage. Like, I had an encounter that I had my players go up against that they weren't really supposed to be able to beat, but one of the guys role played well enough about like they were fighting a horned devil, and it was gonna crush them. But he role played well enough to talk to them that I was like, you know what, roll persuasion, and then he rolled well enough that I was like, you know what, and because if he had not taken the effort to actually talk and actually role play why it should go a certain way, I would not have given him that opportunity. Yeah. I would not have said yeah, because it would have been a dude trying to argue with a fiend about why they shouldn't kill him. But he did it right, so I was like, okay, if you roll well, then it worked. But I think that intro is like a kind of that system, especially if it's because if you have a sort of this beats that kind of thing, and then you give hints as to what might work in that situation to kind of allow them to, if they did the research, if they talked to the guy, if they, through the course of RP, were able to realize this guy's not going to give into flattery too much, or this guy's not going to give into appeals to virtue or appeals to reason or appeals to this or that well, so they don't use that thing because they don't think it's going to work well. It allows them to use the effort they put in as in role play to tilt the odds to their favor.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like okay, the cool part is I've designed the system, of course, with my experience of being a professional game master, and there are times where I'm just like I'm not gonna have you roll because I feel like it takes away from the experience. Just I'm gonna tell you what this is and what this is. Now, if you want to know more information or you want to get more out of this, then we'll probably do some sort of roll or some sort of check to see if you get more than would normally would be. But I think that allows a lot of open-endedness and that gives a lot of creativity.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the reason why I left that one rune, the Void Rune, empty, was because I remember playing in a game long ago where they were trying to, there was a new element that was discovered of magic.
Mm.
And it reminded me of that, of like, you can now use this as a plot point. Maybe, this Void Room is now surfacing up on the surface of the
Yeah.
planet or in whatever, and your world, and you want to make a story around it.
Yeah.
And how that affects your thing. It's that gives you a way new opening, and maybe you want to make new armors and weapons based off of it.
Yeah.
And so that leaves the door open for people to create their own abilities, their own gear, and I think that really is what makes the game a lot of fun.
It's like a MacGuffin that anyone can tailor to what they want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except for Tibby, the dwarf that launched that hammer into space.
Yeah, he knows. He's screwed.
He's mood beyond belief.
Mood. He's mood, man. Mood to all moo out. Okay, so is there anything else, any other little bits of lore about this you would want to drop before we get to the, talk about what it's like to be a paid game master segment?
No, we can always come back to this. I want to hear Grim out. I know they don't have as much time as we do.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God, you might need to go to bed. We might need to do that section as a different. We can do that as a different recording.
How you hanging in there? You good?
You sure?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, because this next conversation might go for another hour.
Yeah, probably will. Let's do this.
Okay. So okay. So with that, I guess we'll wrap up the segment, and it might be in part 2. I'm going to end this recording and go to the next one, but we'll wrap up that segment with that is Runecraft. That's at least the base of Runecraft. The website is out there. I'm going to link the website. It's going to pop up on here. Any sort of special art that Mask wants me to throw up, my editor will throw up up here right now. Yeah. And it's available right now. There is no Kickstarter as of yet. Mask is currently working on the Bestiary, the monster manual, and some other parts of it. But the actual core rulebook, at the very least, is available online for purchase. Do you have any printed copies yet? Or are you going to work on printed copies?
I'm waiting for the artist to finish the spine of the book, and that's literally it. So it'll
Okay,
probably be done by the end of the month.
So that
this is almost the end of the month.
Yep.
It is literally the 31st. So probably maybe 2 weeks, I bet.
Yeah, so it's getting close. It's, if you're interested, you can buy it. You can be one of the earliest players towards it. You can shoot him a lot of angry messages on where's your the thing you DM through? The
startplaying.games.
startplaying.games. You can yell at him about how bad it is, or you can suck up to him and maybe become a named character in the game. Who knows? Maybe if you're super nice to him, it'll be great. I imagine, like, how would you feel if people started, live playing it on Twitch?
Oh, I'd feel so humbled. I might even cry.
There you go. I will personally videotape him crying. If you if you do a live play session of his thing and record it, comment on this video that you did that, and I will drive to his house. I will show him it and record him crying, and I will send that to you. How's that sound, everybody? You could watch a grown man cry.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's still going to be a lot of questions. I did my best to explain things the best I could and in an easy way, but I'm sure people are going to have like, when does this happen? When does this happen? And I'm going to have to go back through.
Yeah, and post any questions you have about the game here in the comments, and I'll get back to him. I'll make him answer. I'll kidnap him. I'll make him answer.
Wait, what, kidnapping?
Yeah.
I think that's illegal.
I don't care.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
Yeah. So we'll end that here, and keep an eye out for. We might post before this. We might post after this, but we're gonna have a little conversation about what it's like to be a paid DM. So I'm gonna end this recording now.